So with that, let's get started. Our first speaker this morning is Karen Swanson. Karen has a doctorate degree in education, and she is the director of the Institute for Prison Ministries, associated with Wheaton College. So, Karen.
Good morning. Thank you again for coming. Really appreciate you coming here on Saturday, giving that up. Thank you for Nick for all his work for putting this together. We want to know a little bit about you. So can you raise your hand if you work within a jail setting? Let's kind of see who's here, okay? People work in the jail. Okay, in a prison setting. Okay. And then those of you who work in reentry, is that most everybody else? You know, a lot of you haven't raised your hand, so working with victims? Okay. All right, so why are the rest of you here? Because I didn't see your hands. So help me out.
Education.
Education, okay.
Prison ministry.
Counseling, okay.
I have son.
Son and prison, okay, so families. Okay.
Outreach ministry in church.
Okay, church outreach ministry. Wonderful. Okay. Formerly incarcerated people are here. Great, wonderful.
Narcotics Anonymous.
What's that?
Narcotics Anonymous.
Narcotics. Okay, addictions. Right, great. Okay, so good. So we're going to be, I'm going to go through some material here. All right, so I'm going to talk about having quality ministry or quality matters, whether you're in ministry or a nonprofit. And it begins with you, the provider. So not even the quality of your services or the programs, so to speak, but the quality of those who are providing the program. So I want to talk about you and your professional development. And, I do all the volunteer training at Cook County Jail, and some of this comes from that training. But one of the things is, I feel like that if you are in this work, you have been called to it, and you have a heart for justice-involved people. That includes anyone in the system, incarcerated or probation, parole, or victims or family members who are dealing with it. So anyone involved with the justice system. But you also have a passion for serving people who are hurting, because oftentimes there is a lot of pain in the lives of people that are justice involved. Another part of being a quality provider is knowing yourself and having self-awareness of your own giftedness and talents. I'm a big StrengthsFinder fan, so if you haven't taken StrengthsFinder, I encourage you to do that. Okay, so again, to understand a little bit about yourself and how you can best use who God has created you to be. And then those of you who serve in religious programs, you need to have the support of your spiritual leaders. This is not a ministry for people to go in on their own. You need to have accountability. You need to have the support of your spiritual leaders. Now, you also need not only to be called, but you need to have character. And the character qualities of the people who are in this work you should have spiritual health, especially if you are caring for the souls of others. What about your own soul? How is your spiritual life? Are you taking care of yourself? You also need to be emotionally healthy. And again, taking self-care. And I just read an article on self-compassion. Again, we're good at giving compassion for others, but maybe not even for ourselves. We also need to be able to submit to authority as being role models for others, having integrity and trustworthy, reliable, consistent. That when you say you're going to do something, that you follow through and do it. Don't make promises you can't keep. That you respect confidentiality, that you provide hope, that you're warm and compassionate. And I don't know who the youngest person in here. This is a little more diverse than some of the places that I volunteer at or that I teach. But the average age of a volunteer is like 55, so we need to make sure that we have vitality and energy when we do this work. That you're professional, that you keep healthy boundaries, and I'll talk a little bit about that. That if you're a volunteer, then you're not there to write the person, put money on their books, advocate for them. You're there as a volunteer, so understanding the boundaries of the role that you are playing. That you're also able to hold people accountable. You're working with people on the outside. That we do better at being friends, but sometimes we have a hard time holding people accountable. That you're loyal to both justice staff as well as the participant. Again, not taking sides, being objective, and that you're collaborative. This work is not one that we can do alone. We need one another. And of course, I'm an educator, so I'm a big fan of being a lifelong learner. But also, you got to be called, but you got to have some character, but you also need competencies. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about these competency areas of being culturally intelligent, correction sensitive, understanding correctional programming principles that have already been researched and documented, being a content expert, being skilled in the work that you've been called to do, being a ministry service provider advocate. So maybe not advocating always for the person who, Heather's going to talk about advocating for reform, but also advocating for just people that care about this work. A lot of people, even in the church, it's like out of sight, out of mind. And so how do we raise awareness of the issues and the challenges in this work? And then succession planning. Someday you're not going to be around. Just wanted to, in case you didn't know that. So we need to be prepared for the future. So let me talk a little bit about these. So cultural intelligence, what does that mean? Well, part of it is knowledge about your culture and the ability to think openly and reasonably about other cultures. More importantly, it is the ability to relate to people across different cultures. Unless you have been incarcerated, this is a cross-cultural type of work. Unless you come from the same neighborhood, the same social economic class, the same ethnicity, then there's cross-cultural. So you need to understand different cultures, but you also need to understand your own culture. So the cultural work is, again, the cross-cultural is, understanding the injustice involved, the ethnic diversity, social economic status. Middle-class people think differently than poverty. What drives middle-class decisions is achievement, right? We go to school, we get degrees, we get a job, we get a promotion, and it's always driven by achievement. But people in poverty, their decisions are based on relationships. So they're going to be willing to go late to work because a friend needs help with something, because their decisions are based on relationships as well as entertainment. And I've learned to understand that. And again, I'm not saying things are right or wrong, but entertainment gives people who are living in poverty in a very stressful day-to-day life a break from that. So now I understand the importance of why entertainment is so important to them. And there's a whole training on differences and understanding that. Gender diversity. What works in a men's prison, you can't just take it and put it in a women's prison. I think you all know that there's differences between men and women, but we don't act on that sometimes. And then religious diversity. If you're working with people from different faiths, understanding the faith that they're coming from and what they believe. We also need to have culture or corrections sensitive. Understanding the role of corrections staff, parole or probation, and putting yourself a little bit in their shoes. Sometimes, I know with people going inside prisons and volunteers or jails, oftentimes the corrections staff are ignored or seen as kind of in the way. But instead, we need to befriend them. And also, there's ministries that ministry of corrections staff. So maybe that's your calling. But you also need to recognize manipulation tactics. Again, being wise so that you're not easily manipulated. Understanding, well, what kind of characteristics make someone easily manipulated. Understanding the setups. So having that training is important. You also need to understand corrections programming principles. And so I may throw out a lot of terms that you're like, I've never heard of these things, I don't know what these are. But again, the more you understand, the better your ministry, your work is going to be. So criminogenic factors, evidence-based principles, gender responsive, trauma-informed, these are all programming principles. And let me give you a little bit of taste into these. All right, so the criminogenic factors for men. So these are risks and needs. The more risks and needs that a person has, the higher their risk is of recidivating, of going back into prison. And so the history of antisocial behavior, so the longer the rap sheet, the higher the risk the person is. Antisocial personality patterns. Again, just like Lewis talked about in the video. Nobody in my neighborhood did anything for nothing. They wanted to get something for it. So trust is a huge issue. And so, again, just having the social patterns. Antisocial attitudes, beliefs, and cognitions. Again, thinking errors, like closed thinking. You can't tell me what to do. Or blaming everybody else for their actions. So learning to think responsibly. And that's part of your job, is to help be responsibility counselors, helping people to learn to live a responsible life. And then the antisocial associates and peers. And not only do people need to not have those friends, but they also need to develop pro-social peers. And that's where you come in as well. But this is where, again, I work at the Billy Graham Center at Wheaton College, and the church is very important to me. And churches need to be welcoming and assimilate people into their community. Because again, when someone gets out, and especially if they become a follower of Christ, and they go to the church, then they're trying to create a whole new network of friends. Or even somebody who has said, you know what, I'm going to leave this life of crime, and I want to live a pro-social life. They have to create this whole new network of pro-social people. And so it's very lonely. And I think one of the challenges for people, especially when they get out, is creating this new network, this supportive network that has pro-social values. So that's a huge area. And then dysfunctional family, again, helping to heal maybe some of the wounds that are there and helping them to learn what a functional family looks like. The lack of employment stability, achievement, educational achievement, again, helping people make progress in this area. The lack of pro-social leisure activities, being able to have fun without substances. I went to a Celebrate Recovery conference. I'm like, I have not had addictions, but being with people who have been in recovery, it's like, that's a wild crowd without any substances. But it was a lot of fun. And but so learning to have those pro-social leisure activities, and then also dealing with substance abuses and treatment for that. And the more of these factors a person has, the higher the risk is for recidivating. But also the more of these factors you address, the better their success rate is. Okay? And again, you don't address factors that they don't have. So again, I'm really against cookie-cutter programs, the one-size-fits-all, because everybody's different and has different needs. Now this is men, but what about women? Women have some of the same factors, but some of the ones are different. Women are highly, highly relational, and relational dysfunction, the family conflict. They have maybe been in domestic violence situations, the parental involvement. They have, their involvement with their kids, as well as, custody, and the parental stress when they get out, housing safety, and also dealing with more mental illness, the depression, anxiety, psychosis, and also dealing with trauma, high levels of trauma, and substance abuse. So again, understanding that the factors for women and men are different, so treating people in the way that they are, that is specific to who they are. And then you have the evidence-based practices. Well, what are these? These are practices, again, that have been identified that work. Okay, so we're always asking, well, what works? And so one is assessing offenders, using the risks and needs, something that actually is been proven to measure these characteristics that I just talked about with those who have been incarcerated. And then enhancing intrinsic motivation. All right, so think of an area in your life that if you changed, your life would be better. Okay, you got that area of your life? Okay, why don't you change it? Right? Because it's hard, right? But I can't say you need to change that area. You need to, do this and this and this and this. That's not how we're motivated for behavior change. And motivational interviewing is a way of helping people become internally motivated to make positive behavior changes. So learning that skill is a huge part of being successful, I think, in interacting with people, especially as they've gotten out. And then targeting your intervention. Again, addressing the risk principle. What risk factors do they have? What needs do they have? What responsitivity principle? How do they best respond as far as teaching opportunities? How much dosage do they need? In other words, somebody who has a lot of risk factors needs a lot of programming. They need more structure. But somebody who doesn't have a lot of the risk factors needs less structure. So again, targeting the intervention to the needs of the person. And then having staff that are skilled with directed practice, again, helping people to learn to do skills, to be skillful about thinking responsibility. And you teach a lot of skills. And positive reinforcement, 4 to 1, 4 positive reinforcement to 1 negative or corrective. So again, these are factors that increases the outcomes of what you're trying to do. Measuring ongoing processes and this ongoing support, giving feedback to the person as they go through their case management plan, and providing that feedback. So we need to evaluate, we need to give feedback to those in our programs. The gender responsive principles, recognizing that gender makes a difference. The pathway of crime for women is very different than for men. Oftentimes the pathway for women begins with some type of trauma or abuse, and then there's PTSD or depression or some other mental illness that is a part of that. And then to deal with all of that pain that comes into play are addictions. And so you have to kind of address all 3 of those, because to feed the addiction then becomes illegal behavior. And so you have to address all 3 of them, not just one at a time even, but all of them. So when you're working with women, they're highly relational. Oftentimes their pathway included other people. A significant other is part of that. Also looking at their strengths, instead of saying, well, these are the areas that you're weak in, let's see, where are you really gifted at? Where do you have strengths? And building off of those strengths. Again, the trauma-informed care, which I'll talk about in a second, but also holistic, looking at the whole person and helping them in that healing. And of course, the culturally competent as well. So what about the trauma-informed approaches? Again, making sure that your place is safe. So when you walk into returning home, that, is this a safe place? Okay. How does a person feel when they walk in the door? Do they know where to go? Do they feel welcome? Or is it, kind of a scary place? I think it's a pretty welcoming place. Okay, again, trustworthy and transparency. Do they feel like they can trust you? Do they feel like that they can be transparent with you? Peer support. Hire those who have been there. Like, and I have a meeting, how he interviews people? He has people who work there do the interviewing because they know who's for real and who's not. And so they have a big part in the process of who gets hired. So, and then collaboration and mutuality. You are working with that person, you're not telling them what they need to do. Let them have a part in the process of what is it that they desire? What are the goals of their life? And so that you're working together to help that person reach their goals. Empowerment, voice, and choice. And again, they need to identify their goals. They need to identify what they need to change first. Let them have voice and choice in their recovery plan. And again, the cultural, historical, gender issues that are related to that person. Then we also need to have competency or be a content expert. So whatever area you work in, maybe it's pastoral care, that you are working with people on the inside and you're delivering notices that someone in their family is sick or died and just are offering pastoral care for them. Maybe it's helping with case management. Maybe it's leading a nonprofit. Maybe you're working in employment, talk to addictions or housing. Maybe you're leading a Bible study, you're leading worship, or doing one-on-ones. Whatever that area is, become the best person you can be in that area. They deserve our best. It's not like, somebody needs to practice preaching, well, let's send them to the prison. No, they need the best. And people who do worship, one chaplain told me that the worship team was outside saying, okay, let's see, you want to pray today, you got a word from the Lord, okay, you're going to do this, and they're planning it while they're on their way there. No, that's unacceptable. It needs to be thought through, it needs to be planned, it needs to be coordinated. And so that it's a quality experience for those who come into that worship. You also need to have skills. So again, depending on where you are, skill in teaching, mentoring, facilitating, groups, case management, listening. Everybody needs to be a quality listener. Motivational interviewing. I think anybody who works with people who've been incarcerated, especially on the outside, need to be skilled in motivational interviewing. If you're leading a nonprofit, you need to have organizational and administrative skills. You also need to be a provider advocate. Provide on-ramp volunteer opportunities for people to expose people to what you do. Because if we're not advocates for this work, nobody else is taking up the banner. Okay? As well as I'm a big proponent of if you're doing this work, you need to support the places that you work. You need to be donors to that place. Because again, if you're not funding it, other people aren't going to be funding it. And so keep learning as well. Train your volunteers if you're over volunteers. Make sure that they have the training they need to be the quality people to do the work that they've been called to do. And of course, collaborate. We can do so much more when we collaborate with others. And I'm a big, again, proponent of not starting nonprofits. Again, join those who are already doing the work. Starting a nonprofit is a lot of work. It takes resources that can be used to build capacity of those that are already doing the work. So I encourage you to join others. And then, of course, succession planning. You need to write out all policies and procedures, not just keep them in your head. Okay? So in fact, Jerry and I talked for about a couple hours yesterday about different things, and it's like he has so much knowledge in his head, that needs to be put down on paper. So then again, if somebody left, all the policies and procedures are all here, or all the things that you've learned. If you even wrote down all the mistakes you made, how much learning that would be for someone else. I know I've made a lot of mistakes in working in reentry. I had a nonprofit, I should have not had a nonprofit. I can tell you all kinds of stories. But, so again, writing those things down so that others can learn from it. But also, if something happens to you, it's all right here. The work continues. Keep looking for others to replace you, and then invest in others. I'm a big proponent of providing opportunities for people to grow, taking them to a conference like this. Bring other people with you next year when you come. And so again, exposing them to other ministries, exposing them to other nonprofits, exposing them to other people. Because again, as we network, we enrich what we do and as well as what others do. So big on collaboration. So these are some resources, and this is a shame. Nick said I could put this in here, so it's a plug for the Institute for Prison Ministries, because that's what we do. We convene and we train and we try to resource people with materials. So there's a certificate in correctional ministries. It's an online certificate program. I think the person here who has been in that program, and Nick has been through. So there's that option. There's online trainings and face-to-face trainings through the Correctional Ministries and Chaplains Association, which I encourage you to join. Where there's, again, resources and materials available. You can ask us questions and we can point you to those kind of resources. We have a summit in May, the Correctional Ministries and Chaplains Association at Wheaton College. And you can always email me, and I'd be happy to steer you in a direction that hopefully will help answer your question. There's other resources that are available. National Resources Center, National Institute of Corrections offers a lot of materials. National Reentry Resource Center, National Resource Center on Justice-Involved Women, the National Resource Center on Children and Families of the Incarcerated. So these are just a few. If you're working in addictions, a SAMHSA website. So again, there's lots of resources out there that you may not know where to go. So if you want, just email me. I'm looking for something on this. Hopefully I can help steer you in that direction. So I want to be a resource to you as well. So I know I went through a lot of material, and a lot of it was probably like, wow, I never knew that was out there. But I encourage you to learn more, because again, as we apply the principles that corrections has identified works, that will help us be better. It also helps us speak the language of corrections. And so again, it builds that collaboration and that partnership. Thank you for your time.